football with the reception at the US Embassy to celebrate the 4th of July. So we are really here in the audience gathered people who are interested in Europe House, in Europe, in our distinguished speaker today. And we are launching the series, A Guest of the Month, with the support of the European Union delegation here in Georgia, to really foster the debate, to really bring frontline European ideas, to really bring experience to young people who here in Georgia have a dream of Georgia being part of a united Europe. And we are planning to have 5, 6 of these discussions per year, and we really hope that you will be active participants. And today, not to waste your time, I would like to introduce our guest, who is the former Prime Minister of Estonia, Mart Laar, who served 2 consecutive terms as a Prime Minister, and who really made some astonishing changes. From negotiating the withdrawal of Russian troops to preparing Estonia to become member of the European Union, to introducing reforms that really made the country what later was called the Baltic Tiger. And we hope that from the discussion today we can learn, we can ask questions, and we also hope that our guest, by communicating with you, will learn something about new Georgia, about young Georgia, about Georgia that is also going through dramatic changes in the economy, in democracy, in rule of law. And this is why we are all here. So I will pass the floor to Mart, who will give his speech, and then we will open for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Gamachova, from my side also. And I'm really happy to, and even surprised to see so many people here at the moment, because the competition is so tough. I think even the United States Embassy reception is not so, but the football is absolutely tough competitor. So I'm especially in this context pleased to have you all here, and to really to try to give my view or some ideas on this topic which was announced. This is namely how wide is Europe, or how wide it goes. Because this is always discussion, and it has been through the history of quite important discussion, where to find a common view has been quite difficult for the scientists, for the historians, for the politicians. I think from every aspect, every specialist is having a different opinion. So which means I can partly speak from my experience, and in this context maybe to draw some parallels on conclusions with Georgia and with other countries, which is called, we can say, New East Europe. This is quite new wording, but it is becoming in European level more and more popular, looking how many people are reading the publication of Svante Cornell on the same topic of New Eastern Europe, which is namely targeting now the countries between Russia and the European Union, then excluding the Balkan countries, which are so more or less Europe. And in this context, when I started to think what I will talk on this subject, I remembered my own country, Estonia. When we regained our independence after 50 years of Soviet occupation in 1991, to be very frank, there was not too many people in Europe, or the experts or politicians, who thought that we are actually part of Europe. The most common wording on us was the former Soviet Republic. And when in 1992 there was published in Economist a large overview with the pictures and illustrations on how the Europe can build maybe up, there were actually 3 or in this moment 3 or 4 countries which really belong to the Europe, which were soon prognosed will be part of Europe. They were Poland, Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia. It was dividing itself in these times. Hungary, and that's it. the next wave of enlargement may be possible. The European membership had to be the Bulgaria and Romania, Yugoslavia, which had its own problems soon in this time, but the Baltic countries ousted. Former Soviet republics without no hopes, without no perspectives. Currently, actually the people who wrote those articles are not very much wanting to remember them. And, but in this time, I must say, you couldn't blame them, because this was realistically the common view. And in this context, when we are talking about the topic, how far the enlargement will go, or how far the Europe actually lies, I always suggest to remember the same story, which means that the borders of Europe are defined very often by not even geography, not even the history and the culture, which will be very important and which I will a little bit talk afterwards, but they're very much put there on the will and desire of people. Which means that when one country or when one nation decides that I will be part of Europe, then actually looking on the reality, in one day it will happen. But it's not, of course, only decision to wake up in the morning and say, ahoy, I am now in Europe. But this means lot of work to really become the part of Europe. So when I'm talking about decision made, then this must be really decision, and this must be hard work. But when this decision is made, when the nation has really decided by all its work, by all its means, to become the member of Europe, I think all the chances are there, and the doors actually are open, and they will stay open till it can happen. This sounds, I know, quite optimistic, but in many ways I think there is a good ground, looking also on the Estonian experiences, even having a lot of sad and bad experiences, to believe in this, that the Europe is based on values, how it's declared, because sometimes it doesn't look, I know, but at the end, when this will is there, it always happens. But at the same time, looking on those countries, we can say this new Eastern Europe, which show names that this is Europe. It's East, but it's Europe. I think even looking on this geographical or especially cultural and historical matters, these countries really belong to the Europe, because Europe quite clearly is not geography. I think you can put the geographical borders of Europe, is still discussed where to put it. The center of Europe, when you know, is in Lithuania, so quite far east geographical center. And there are some people in Belarus and some in Ukraine who argue with this, but I will support the position of our Baltic neighbors. But anyway, it's quite far east, and when the center is so far east, then looking on the map, it's very clearly that all those countries which are talked now as New Eastern Europe are actually there. But even more, as I said, I don't think that Europe is geographical entity. It's entity based on the common values, on the common heritage, on the common culture. And in this context, maybe not all countries, but at least Georgia belongs there very clearly, including with some other Caucasian countries. Because when we are looking what is this common heritage and common values, where it starts from the Christianity. It's we can have the opinions that it starts even earlier from the Greece and Roman Empire. But even then, the Georgia passed to the picture enormously well. But very clearly, from the modern Europe, how we call it, the Christianity has been the base. And how you can exclude the country from Europe with some oldest churches in the Europe, with one of the oldest first countries